Well, they closed down the mill and they closed down the mine. They said you can't work but pay your taxes on time. Got 3 little babies gonna starve to death or freeze. We started making white lightning, it was Grandpa's recipe. Run, rebel, run to no avail. Run, rebel, run to the Scott County Jail.
Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday night. Happy May 9th. And we are excited to be here. You are locked in for the next hour with myself and my co-host, Dr. Christy Sumner.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Looks like we've got some great people on over in the chat room. Thank you for being here. Sonia, Ronnie, Janet, thank you all for joining us tonight. We're really excited about tonight's show. We've got a special lady coming all the way from New Brunswick and up in Canada, and she's going to talk about an amazing jail. So we're really excited about this guest that we've got on.
Yeah, I just love doing this series and talking about and highlighting these other jails because we've talked about a lot of really cool places at this point all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're really excited to be able to bring you that. If you haven't seen any of those episodes, we definitely encourage you to go back and watch those. I know last week our guest, what did we do last week? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, man. Why do you put me on the spot like that? Because I can't remember either.
I don't know.
This is what old age looks like. Oh, goodness. I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
If y'all can remember, who did we have last week? Because I totally forgot. We've had so much going on this week. This last weekend, we had a really cool booth at the British Fest in Rugby. So we had a lot of great people come by, learn some information about historic rugby. So we're really excited to share all of that. And we've had
Jim Thorpe.
Oh, that's right.
Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there you go. Jim Thorpe,
yes.
Pennsylvania. Nice. We had a really cool guided ghost hunt. We had some great ladies come and join us at the jail, and then they extended that guided ghost hunt over to Rugby. So had a lot of fun with them. We had some flashlight tours. We just had it all last weekend. A lot of rain as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting few days.
Yeah. It was a great show last week. And like Chris said, for the folks that came in and did the tour this weekend, they were from the podcast Homespun Haints, as well as Lady Till's Curios. Yeah. And so I know we're going to try to have them on the show to talk about some of the experiences that they had at the jail, as well as what they had at Historic Rugby. And just a reminder, we're also broadcasting live on the Historic Rugby After Dark page. So if you're following us and watching us from that page, thank you and welcome. So a little note on that with the tours and stuff. We've got all of our tours open for the summer, and that means all of our lantern tours at Historic Rugby for Historic Rugby After Dark, all of our guided ghost hunts, as well as private paranormal investigations for both Rugby and the jail. And I know some of those weekends are booking up pretty quick. Especially Memorial Day weekend. I know a lot of folks are going to be traveling. We've had several calls today. In fact, I think Friday and Saturday night of the cemetery tour at Rugby is completely sold out. So we do still have tickets for the downtown tour, as well as if anyone's interested in a guided ghost hunt, we do have that as well. And then this weekend, we've got a couple tickets left for a flashlight tour that's going on Saturday night, but we do have tickets open for Friday and Sunday night here at the jail, and I think all weekend at
Or
rugby.
at rugby. Yeah, we have tickets
Yeah.
available for that. So
So,
if you're in the area, we'd love to see you on a flashlight tour or a lantern tour at rugby. So we'll be posting those some more updates as we kind of go along throughout the summer. But as Miranda said, we've opened up all of those dates, so we're really excited about getting those filled up and excited about seeing y'all come and experience the jail and historic rugby. The next thing we need to talk about is coming up very quickly. We will both be in Franklin, Kentucky on the 18th. We'll be speaking at the paranormal meet and greet, paranormal locations meet and greet. This is gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have some great people at this meet and greet. Vicki Norris from Reflections of the Paranormal, Elite Vixens is going to be there. They're the two groups that are putting it on, so we're very excited to meet up with them again. Ronnie D from Old South Pit and Harriman Hospital will be there. A Bear from Octagon Hall. So we have a lot of great people that'll be there. So if you're in the area, please stop by and say hello at the Paranormal Places meet and greet.
yeah, I think the meet and greet goes from 3:30 to 7, and that's going to be Central Time. And it's going to be at the Franklin, Kentucky Old Stone Jail or Simpson County Historical Society. And then after that, I know they've got some tickets to the VIP ghost hunt that's going to take place there at the Old Stone Jail afterwards. So you definitely don't want to miss that. If you want to find out a little more information about that, I'm actually going to be having Chanel from Elite Vixen on my show after this one. And so that'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Ghost Biker Garage. And she's going to be talking about all the cool things that's going on with this Paranormal Places meet and greet that's going to take place on the 18th.
So I'll be speaking about historic rugby after dark. Miranda will be speaking about the historic Scott County Jail. And again, just come and learn about different places in the area as well that are open for paranormal investigations.
Yeah. So like I said, we'll be talking a little bit more about that tonight, and then we'll be pushing it a little bit more throughout. So, so I think we should probably go ahead and we've had a lot of things going on, but I think we should.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this guest tonight. She is just a lot of fun. We were talking to her a few minutes ago backstage, and she's just a really cool individual, and she's going to have a lot of stories to tell about her jail that is located in New Brunswick, Canada.
Yeah.
So
in Charlotte
please
County.
welcome Felicity.
Hello from Canada.
Hey, Felicity, thank you so much for coming on. I know we've had this date booked for a long time because we wanted to make sure that you all weren't frozen in up there.
Either frozen in or snowed in, one or the other.
And you actually have your wood burning stove going today, right?
It's going as I speak. It's going 24/7. I've had the wood burning stove going as late as June.
Goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, that's definitely some cooler weather up there for sure.
It's currently 5 degrees and it's going to frost tonight.
Wow. Yeah, well,
Wow.
wood burning stove is definitely the way to go. I love those things.
Oh yeah, especially when you have your own wood.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited about speaking with you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your area, and then we'll start talking about your.
All right. Well, my real name is Felicity, but on Friday and Saturday nights during the summer, right up until Halloween, or later if the weather plays, I call myself Misdemeanor because I am going to be taking you to jail, and it doesn't matter how much bail you pay, you might make it out.
I love that.
And it's in a seaside resort. It's actually the oldest seaside resort in Canada. It was settled by the Loyalists in 1783, and it's right on the bay, Passamaquoddy Bay, which actually is part of the Bay of Fundy. And the Bay of Fundy is known for its highest tides in the world. Over 100 billion tons of water floods in here twice a day. The tides around here go anywhere between 24 and 27 feet. The further inland, it neighbors Maine, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. And when it bottlenecks in to the very end, the tides are 45 feet high.
Wow.
And it empties out twice a day, every day. And it's quite funny because you get tourists in the summer saying, "Oh, is there a tap to turn it on and off?" And It
Sounds
is
about right.
also it means like if you go further along the coastline from St Andrews to Hopewell Rocks, they're huge rocks and they're called flower pot rocks. And when the tide's in, you can kayak through these caves.
Oh,
But when the
fun.
water's
Oh.
gone, you're walking on the ocean floor.
Oh,
Wow, that's incredible.
Awesome.
But you only have 6 hours before that tide's going to start rushing in, and she rushes in.
Mhm.
But it is also home to over 300 million years of fossils.
Oh,
That's
how
so cool.
cool.
All right, my
Now,
passport is
the
getting dusted
coolest
off.
thing is king tides and full moons. Because of the gravity, we are exactly on the 45th parallel. So we've got all of that energy coming in. We have a high tide and a king tide, which adds normally about 5 or 6 feet, sometimes more if there's been a lot of rain and snow. But the gravity force means that we can stand our brooms up for at least 2 days on their own.
Oh, wow.
That is a cool fact. I
Yeah,
love that.
that is really cool. People don't believe it, but you stand a broom up and she just freestands.
That's
And
awesome.
it's because of the magnetic pole and being on the 45th parallel and all that water. But all that water coming in generates an awful lot of spirits too.
Oh, I'm
Because
sure.
it's a ghost town in the winter because of the weather, obviously.
Mhm.
But with that water coming in, it really stirs up the souls in the town. And it's got quite a few ghosts.
That was actually going to be one of my questions later on was, does that actually seem to affect
Oh,
the
big
spirits?
time. I love it when there are high tides and there's been a storm, preferably a hurricane, because that makes it very interesting.
Oh, yeah, it
I'm
does.
sure.
Yeah, I actually had a paranormal team come down in just about hours after the hurricane had hit further down the coastline here.
Mhm.
And it was the most active up until December of this last year gone, paranormal investigation, because what we done is we set it at the exact time the prisoners were allowed out of their cells to
Oh,
have
cool.
recreational, which was never outside.
Okay.
And with the king tide, a hurricane, and a full moon, it was on.
It was active as, oh man, we got to plan that.
Yes.
I want to plan that, and I want to do that exact same thing.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting because you see things at low tide and you go back and they're not there anymore. There's an island called Minister's Island, and
Mhm.
it was the home to Sir William Van Horn, and he was a gentleman originally from the States, and he incorporated and built the CPR railway here in Canada,
Okay.
and that was his home. And you can only get to the island by the road at no tide. Once the tide comes in, forget it. You're not going to cross. Even if you have an amphibian vehicle, you're not going to be able to cross easily.
Wow. That would
And
be
it was
interesting.
his own island. And
That's nice.
they've been doing a lot of work on there recently. It was very forward-thinking gentleman. He had a swimming pool. What he done is he got his workers to dig a swimming pool out of the rocks. And so when the tide came in, it filled the swimming pool up. When the tide went out, it left the swimming pool full.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way
Yeah.
to do it.
So, but over the course of 100 years, it's filled up with silt and all kinds of stuff, trees from storms. We had 3 bad storms in less than 10 days during the spring, the winter, and it actually washed out the entire road. They wanted to widen the road, but not to the extent where it's just gone.
Well, it's gone, yeah.
But they rebuilt it. They kind of like shored it up, and because you drive from the main drag on the bar road, and then you're just driving across the ocean floor.
That is wild.
Wow.
And then you go back at high tide and there's no sign of a road.
Wow. So what is the permanent population there? I mean, does it have a substantial population
It
year
has
round?
about 1,500 in the winter, because
Okay.
there is a college. There's a college here, and it's there's a lot of people like myself who live here all year round.
Mhm.
But in the summer, it was actually voted the best place to visit in Canada a couple of years ago by, I
Oh,
think it was the New York Times.
oh,
Wow. Okay.
fantastic.
And we also have an awful lot of Americans have their homes here because it's literally maybe 15 minutes to the US border from here.
Yeah, did you say you're actually bouncing off a US tower for your data right now?
I live just outside of the town, and from my kitchen window, I can see into Maine.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right
how
there.
close I am. But it's on the side of the bay. If you look at the map, you'll see St. Andrews. It goes up the St. Croix River, hooks around, and we come out at Maine.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome. So obviously, I mean, you were talking a little bit backstage, and we were talking. Now, you're originally from England, correct?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you've been in this area for how long?
I moved to Canada in 1995, and I lived in Toronto for a while. And then I moved out to New Brunswick. I came because this is a loyalist town, and I like to say to people, I came and I didn't leave. Well, I did leave to go back to Toronto to pack up. I had no job, no house, nowhere to live. I just winged it and came here. And that was in 2002.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. So now, how did you get associated with the jail?
Well, I've always liked history, and the jail has always fascinated me because I'd done many years working for the court system in England.
Oh,
And
okay.
being a loyalist town, there was a pull to this jail. So I went on the ghost walk when I was here on holiday as a holidaymaker. And I just fell in love with this jail. It was just so spooky, so weird, so wild. And the courthouse is a traditional British courthouse.
Okay.
So after I moved here, anytime visitors or friends from, overseas or from Toronto would visit, we'd always go on the ghost walk. And I think this is my 10th year. And at the time, the head archivist, she was looking for volunteers. And I said, oh, yeah, I've been on enough ghost walks. I probably know them all by now. So I went out and they said, yeah, okay. So I ran the storylines by them. And I kind of made it a bit interesting. I took it to a whole new level. I managed to reproduce some sheriff warrants from the 1800s. And I would willingly arrest people for, things that people don't have their Facebook settings very good. And, they would be halfway through a ghost walk and I'd suddenly say, oh, hang on a moment. I think I have a warrant for your arrest here. And, I made it a lot of fun.
That's fun.
So, yeah.
That is
especially
very
for the
fun.
kids, because they would ask me questions like, where's the washroom? And I would point to the pot on the ground because they didn't have a washroom in there till the late 1900s, 1920, I think it was.
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit of the history of the jail itself, like when it was built and such?
Yeah. Well, the first jail was built on the Water Street, which is the main drag through town. It's a one-street town.
Okay.
And it was a great idea for the time. They put the jail on the bottom and the courthouse on the top, which meant during the, you would get your sentence upstairs and you would serve it downstairs. But the infinite wisdom of the builder of that day is he built the whole thing on a dirt floor, which meant at night, the prisoners would merely scrabble through the dirt and escape to freedom. Now, back then, you could go to jail for owing money, a debt. So if you escaped on your debt, it was up to the sheriff of this town to pay off your debt.
Oh, that's one way to keep you in.
So in 1816, because the original jail was built in 1790, in 1816, the town met after so many escapes, and they decided they needed to build a new jail and a new courthouse, a jail with the reputation that you'd never willingly want to return to, and you would never be able to escape from. So they put the first slab down in 1816, and it finally opened in 1832.
Wow.
And it was a fully functioning working jail right up until 1978.
Goodness. That's fantastic, actually. That's longevity.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, we're looking at a picture right now.
Now you'll see upstairs, Upstairs was the jailer's quarters. Above the door
Okay.
is what used to be the jailer's quarters. And the two dark windows that you see at the top, they were for the children. That's correct, children,
God.
women and debtors.
Okay.
Downstairs, 10 more cells. And that's where everybody else would go,
Okay. Wow.
including traveling children who had no parents. Because back then,
Oh.
if you didn't send your child to school, it was illegal. So they would be held in the jail for truancy.
Oh.
Now, it wasn't up to the jailer's wife, who sadly burnt to her death in that jail in 1834. It wasn't her job to look after your children.
Mhm.
So if your child broke the law, you would have to go to jail to look after them. And it was
Wow.
the same as if the parents broke the law, you could give your children over to the poorhouse in town
Mhm.
or take them to the jail, because it was illegal to give your child to a relative or friend. So the family that broke the
Oh.
law went to jail together.
Wow.
But
Wow.
there were 3 boys who were imprisoned in 1863
Okay.
for stealing bread. And they were 7, 9, and 11. And they were traveling children and they had no parents. So that meant they went downstairs in the, the adult cell, adult part of the jail, I put it. And they pushed the 7-year-old out between the windows. Now, the windows have no glass in them, and they're only 4 inches this way by a foot that way. The walls
Unbelievable.
are 2.5 meter thick granite blocks, and those doors are sheer iron.
Wow.
And you'll notice that they have steps.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
made it easier for the jailer to push you in and out. The only
Wow.
cell that does not have a step is the solitary confinement cell. And that was, if you got 28 days in there, that was it, 28 days. And there's no window in the solitary confinement cell.
Oh, that's awful.
Wow.
And there's no light. The lights went in the late 60s.
Mhm.
And the cells, the actual corridor you see is
Mhm.
only 5 foot.
Oh,
And
wow.
the cells are only 8 foot.
Okay.
Each
Wow.
cell is 8 foot.
How many cells are there?
There's 10
Okay.
in
Okay.
total.
Mhm.
There was a hygiene cell opposite the solitary confinement, and that was their toilet cell. The water used to freeze in there all the time. In fact, the inmates tried to burn the toilet to unfreeze it, but they didn't have much success. So even the jailer, he brought in a goose for his family. Now, the jailer lived upstairs in 2 rooms with his wife and their 2 children.
Okay.
And he brought in a goose, a live goose, for their Christmas dinner. And he put it downstairs in the corridor, and it froze to death overnight.
Awful.
Oh.
Gosh. Well, that would make it terrible for the inmates in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yes. Yeah. There was one gentleman who was found, his death certificate is recorded as a visitation of God and God alone. He basically didn't survive. I mean, it was hard times in there. They did have a potbelly stove in the middle of the corridor,
Mhm.
but once those cell doors are locked and they're
Can't
sheer
feel it.
iron, there's
Yeah.
no way that heat's going to get in.
Yeah, you're not feeling
And this gentleman was found face down in his Bible, in his cot. They call them cots, not beds. And the beds, should we call it, they fold up. So if you needed to put another prisoner in, you could just fold the bed up and turn it and push it
Mhm.
against the wall.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So how many inmates would they fit in each cell?
Well, one side has bunk beds, so there would be 2.
Okay.
And so there would be around about 15 to 20 downstairs.
Okay.
And then upstairs there were 4 cells. It's the same floor size as downstairs, but they were bigger cells, but they were 4 of them. And that's
Okay.
where families, debtors, and children went.
Did they have issues with overcrowding at times there?
I do believe so in certain activities, should we say, when it was illegal to drink here, prohibition. There are, it's the actual home of the archives, and it holds all the history of the town. And
Okay.
prohibition was ripe here. So, a few people broke the law, and at times the jail was probably full of people who broke the prohibition laws. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask something. Now I forgot it.
Well, while you're thinking of it, did they ever have any executions there?
yes.
Okay.
Now I'm going to talk about a lot of Thomases. And I hope there's somebody online with the name Thomas. I'm going to talk about a lot of Thomases in a very short time.
Okay.
There were three
Okay.
Thomases. Thomas Ward was killed by Thomas Dowd. Now, Thomas Dowd was living at the Ward residence, and all of a sudden, Thomas Ward ended up dead in the field. So they arrested Thomas Dowd and Eliza Ward. Now, she had two daughters. One was 13, the other one was 15. The 15-year-old had just had a baby with one of the other lodgers. So they couldn't take her to the jail, but they took her and her 13-year-old daughter because there was nobody to look after her.
Okay.
They were both tried at the same time in the courthouse next door, which opened in 1840 and was a fully functioning working court right up until 2016. They were both found guilty for the murder of Thomas Ward, and they were due to hang. Thomas Dowd was going to hang on the 16th of January, 1879, and Eliza Ward was going to hang on the 18th of January, 1879.
Wow.
Thomas Dowd, was hung above the door. As you go in, you see the front door.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a suspension hanging. It's two nooses go around the neck, one side, one the other, and they asked him to step out of the window above that door, and he fell to he was executed that way.
Wow.
It was the biggest attended hanging that the town had ever had. They had to bring in extra horseback police. People who lived with flat roofs around the jail actually sold seats to watch it. Now, Eliza Ward was given a reprieve at the last moment, and you've got to love the newspapers. Even back in 1879, it made the New York Times and the Boston Press.
Really?
And they were horrified that St. Andrews and Canada were going to hang a very heavily pregnant woman, because Eliza Ward was now expecting Thomas Dowd's child. So she wasn't set free. She was given 7 years in the in the penitentiary in Dorchester, which is about 2 hours east of here. East,
Okay.
yeah, east. Yes, east. We're going east, not west. And she was sent there for 7 years hard labor. And after she gave birth to her child there in the jail, they left. And it was on her deathbed that she finally made the confession. And that was, I killed him with the axe, and I alone took his life. The man they hung indeed was innocent. They didn't hung the wife.
What?
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I would have haunted her for the rest of her life.
Oh, now the other Thomas is in 1942, a gentleman, a RAF sergeant from England, came because there was a big military base out at Penfield, which is about 20 minutes from here.
Okay.
And he was arrested for the murder of a very prominent woman here, a very prominent businesswoman. And he went to trial, and the trial started in September, and he was hung on the 16th of December, 1942. And he was the last gentleman to be hung here in the town. Now, everywhere, gallows are considered tainted wood, and they are to be burnt after each hanging.
Yep.
Not in this case. It was found underneath the floorboards of the courthouse in 2014.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Wow.
And if you look down those pictures at the end, you will
Okay.
see big pieces of lumber crossed like this. Those are part of the gallows.
Let's
Wow.
see.
A picture of the courthouse? Or the
Oh,
picture of the
jail.
jail?
the
The
jail.
gallows
jail.
are inside the jail now.
Was it the
Okay.
one that I just had up there a few minutes ago?
Yeah, where you saw the cell doors.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
Let
gonna
me
pull that
find
back
that
up.
here.
Back up.
There we go. And I'll zoom in on that. So you're talking
Yeah.
about those at the end of the hall.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Down by the white bench are
Mhm.
the mechanisms that the hangman would have pulled, the levers. And those are the two trap wood. Like you can see it looks like a T.
Okay,
Those
yeah.
are the platforms. What happens is the gallows would fall like this and it would
Mhm.
just open up and you'd fall to your death.
Wow.
So the most important parts are there. The actual platform for the gallows and the pulley and the thing and the noose, obviously.
So they put them under the courthouse, and then they were found under the courthouse, you said?
Yep, they were supposed to be burnt because it's I'd say out of all the hauntings that are there,
Mhm.
Thomas Hutchins was his name, Sergeant Tom Hutchins.
Okay.
He's seen a lot. Like he is seen in most people's pictures. People have
Mhm.
they walk in and they're like, okay, what just happened? And to me, I'm not fazed by it.
Yeah.
But people always come and they don't realize that there
Mhm.
are 2, maybe 3 Thomases in there. And Thomas Dowd has always taken back seat up until September 2 years ago when he decided, no, I'm having my 5 minutes of fame here. He actually manifested himself in a chair, got up and turned the lights off in the hallway
Oh my
on the
God.
paranormal team after lifting up the woman's hair, and you can clearly see her hair lift up.
Wow. That is fantastic.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
the jailers, there was a lot of women who
Mhm.
served time in there for various things.
Mhm.
And the jailer's wife, she likes to show up, and when she's around because you get that overwhelming smell of burnt hair,
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
and then it changes to
Fantastic.
burnt clothing. And what happened is she burnt to her death in the jail there. There was nothing they could do to save her. She
Oh.
had gone down into the bottom half of the cell because they lived above the door
Mhm.
upstairs, and she'd gone down. I feel sorry when I say this. I've got a weird sense of humor. I'm sorry. She had one job to do, and that was to provide. And see, they didn't have any food. Their meals were a cup of tea in the morning and a piece of bread with molasses on. And that was their meal twice a day. They did not get a hot meal for many, many years. And when they did finally
Wow.
get that hot meal, it was once a week, not once a day. We're talking it's
That's awful.
barbaric. And
Yeah.
one night she went down and sat by the potbelly stove and caught her dress alight and burnt her to death.
Oh.
That's awful.
And took her last breath in that jail. And when I found that out, I had to bring her in on the ghost stories.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I even talk about the gentleman, the town hangman in 1793. He came from an island called Campobello Island. It's the former home of President Roosevelt.
Okay.
And he came from there, and he would build the gallows in the town, and he would be paid handsomely for that. But John Dunbar, sorry, liked building gallows, but he liked his drink a lot more, which meant he would spend all the gold that he'd been paid on by the town between here and his going home.
Mhm.
And he'd arrive home to his dearly departed wife, a lot lighter for the gold and a lot less worse off for the beer.
Oh,
So
no.
one night she actually found him out in the garden digging. So she decided to earmark the spot and go out and find out what he'd been hiding in the ground. And it was all the money that he hadn't drunk, all the gold.
Oh,
So
wow.
she took it out of the ground. About a week later, John Dunbar went to make a withdrawal from his bank in the ground, as I put it. And he realized all the money had gone. He put 2 and 2 together, came up with 5, and realized that the wife had taken it. So he killed her.
Oh,
but that wasn't enough. He chopped her up into tiny pieces and put them in a pickle of brine.
Oh my gosh.
So being a small island, back then there was no international bridge crossing back in. To get to Campobello Island, you have to go from here. You can take 2 ferries and stay in Canadian waters, or you can drive through the States for about an hour and 40 minutes and then cross Roosevelt International Bridge back into Campobello Island, which belongs to Canada. So small island, people were starting to notice Mrs. Dunbar was missing. So, you know, people went to the police, her friends, and they reported her missing. They went out to the house. They noticed that the floorboards had been recently ripped up and put back down in a haphazardly fashion, not the sign of a good carpenter. So they returned, ripped up, nice kitty, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, that's
they
Sally.
ripped up the floorboards, and there was the pickling barrel.
Oh my
So they
God.
cranked off the lid, and floating in all the brine was the chopped up body of Mrs. Dunbar. So they brought him back to St. Andrews to stand trial for his wife's murder. And obviously he was found guilty. But this was before that jail was built. So he went into the jail with the dirt floor, and he escaped not once, not twice, but 3 times.
You think somebody would get the clue?
Actually, when they found him for the 3rd and last time, they were so worried he'd go on the run again. They actually handed him the tools of his trade, and he was made to build his own set of gallows.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
I think,
awful.
I think you all do crime and punishment right.
Yeah, no, it is actually in the archives. There is papers from the time saying when he hit the unlucky 13th step, he announced to the crowd, had they ever seen such a fine set of gallows built, because he took extra care, because, you know, he's going to be dying by his own craft here, his handiwork. But yeah, so, and I tell people, you know, on TripAdvisor, people have written about me saying, oh, they'd never eat a dill pickle, because I'm like, oh, she was on a pickle, and yes, she was chopped up in brine. But to know who was hung and who was chopped up, got to give me an hour and a half of your time. And I used to go over to Campobello Island to do ghost walks over there, and I would dress as Mrs. Dunbar, completely saturated in fake blood, with like body parts in a jar, which were carved up cucumbers and dill pickles. And I'd go through the border, and luckily the border guards, where are you going? I'm going back to 1790. Oh, okay. And then one time I took a life-size skeleton as a passenger, and when I went over, it was light. When I came back through the 2 borders, because you've got to go out of Canada into the US, out of the US back into Canada. When I pulled up at the US bridge, the guy laughed at me. He goes, does the skeleton have a passport? I said, no, sir, it doesn't. And there's this life-size skeleton, not real, by the way, glowing in the dark in the passenger side of my car. But yeah,
they probably have so many.
Sorry?
They probably have so many stories about you at the border crossing gate.
Well, I used to go over for their Fog Fest. It was a festival they had, but I haven't been over for a couple of years, but I very much enjoyed it. But yeah, people know my car because there will be a skeleton in the passenger seat at random times. You know, people say, have you got a skeleton in your closet? I say no, but I do in my car. Halloween is every day for me.
There you go. Love it. Absolutely love it.
But yeah, I mean, like, there was a lot of pirate ships here. Like, the graveyards here are full of pirates. Well, not pirates, but people who died on voyage. And there is one gentleman who's buried in the old Loyalist cemetery, because the ghost walk just isn't going through the town. It's part historical, part ghost walk. And there is one, and I talk about, you know, the people in the graveyard. There's a a supposedly legitimate son to the royal family, Charles Joseph Briscoe, our international man of mystery, as I put it. He was exhumed in 1890. Dig once, dig twice. But unfortunately, when they put him in the lead coffin, they didn't put the lid on. So everything that was in the coffin that would have proved who he said he was, because he arrived here as an orphan on board a ship, had literally disintegrated because they'd left the lid of the coffin slightly ajar. And during COVID, I was like, oh, it's lockdown, you know, I'm a single person here. I can go and you know, I can do things. I was like, yeah, I'll dig him up again, see if I can get some DNA. But no, not doing that. But no, there is one gentleman who's buried in the graveyard here, and he fell off the mast on board a ship. And because there was no water in the bay, he was allowed to be buried on land because he didn't die at sea because there was no water in the bay below the boat when he fell to his death. But the cemeteries are full of people en route to Jamaica, from Liverpool, you know, because this was a very prosperous shipbuilding community in its time. There was over 80 different wharfs in the town, all building ships.
Wow.
That is awesome. Now, I've got a question. So, going back to the gallows. So, it was found in the courthouse. So, is
Under
the
the courthouse in the basement.
Right. So, is that haunted? Is the courthouse haunted as well? Do you know of any stories there? Oh,
in fact,
great.
I think it's actually more haunted than
really?
the jail.
Ah.
Nice. So, what stories do you have about that?
Sorry?
What stories can you tell us about that?
Well, everybody who went through there, like that court opened in 1840. So everybody who's gone through there, like a lot of people were found guilty of crimes that they may not have committed. The actual prisoners' docks still have the holes in the benches for the chains that people were chained in there for. And it was called the hot seat. And what would happen is in the days when it was heated by a wood furnace, the gentleman in charge of the courthouse would go in 4 hours before court sat at 10. And he would feed that furnace like there was no tomorrow. Meaning when the court opened at 10 o'clock, the judge, the prosecution, the defense, and, you know, everybody else, the jury, they were nice and warm. So they would bring the prisoners from the back end of the jail into the courthouse through the side door. They would then put them in the dock, as we call it, prisoner's box. And the minute they got in there, they would sweat profusely. Now, we know that when people sweat, it is a sign of guilt, is it not? No, those people were now sat on top of where that wood furnace had been burning for 4 hours, and they'd gone from an icy hell into a fiery prisoner's box. So I believe a lot of people were found guilty for crimes, and there's a lot of lost souls. Like on the 16th of December last year, 2 paranormal teams came down because it was the 81st anniversary of the hanging of Tom Hutchins. And it was one of the most draining and emotional nights I've ever done. I've done 21 nights in that jail. Don't tell Joe Rogan, but fear is not a factor for me. But it was, I mean, there is a Facebook page that I run called the Ghost Walks of St. Andrews by the Sea, New Brunswick. And I never want to know what they find. I just lock them in there. Like, you know, it's great delight. I just lock both of those iron doors, wish them the best of luck. And, you know, that's it. So the video came out about 3-4 weeks ago. And I was in the courthouse for the investigation, because it was cold over in the jail. And it was just so emotional, so draining. And see, there is a man there that protects the courthouse. He's not too nice. He hangs out of the window holding a big noose over his hand like this. But there's so many lost souls in that courthouse. Like, you know, you got to remember that was a courthouse right up until 2016.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And the
yeah,
last
that's
death inside the jail, you know, the jail that you see, the last
Mhm.
death was in 1978. So, I mean, that isn't that long ago,
it's
really,
relatively new. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Wow.
you know. But, you know, as I say, sticks and stones, you know, build you new homes. But if the souls are there, they're always going to be there.
Mhm.
And the
That's right.
cemetery is only one intersection up. And on a lot of paranormal teams, they're coming back. Because I used to say they go from place to place.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
when the prisoners were allowed to have recreational time for an
Mhm.
hour or so, they weren't allowed out of the jail. They were pushed into the corridor. They weren't allowed outside those four walls of that
Oh.
jail.
Wow.
So there is you know, you hear a lot of things. I worked in there one winter on the database, and I would hear the beds moving. And so I moved the laptop down that I was working on down outside the door, and I'd hear, you know, I'd pull the latch across and I'd go, get it down, somebody's got a work to do. But
So-
it's incredibly haunted. Like, I've had grown men literally bolt out of there, and they've left their wives and children behind, and you know, the kids are just fine with it. I mean, I had one woman leave because she said, "Oh, you have real ghosts," and I went, "Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, we do." But yeah, it's and there's some really weird pictures. Like, one afternoon, we get hot summers here, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And one summer afternoon, it was so hot, I decided I'd go into the jail, sit there on my own with about 4 cameras and 2 phones. And I was, and out of 800 pictures, I got 2 of a man moving from cell to cell.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Ah.
That's a great experiment. I love that.
And so, you know, it's all on the Facebook page, and that one is actually calling moving from cell to cell, because you know when they're there. The man who recently, you know, in 1708 died, there's a terrible smell of urine.
Mm.
We get that here too.
Yep.
Yeah.
When the jailer's wife is there, you smell burnt hair and burnt clothing, and then it's time to go. You just go, like, you make an excuse, like, time over, you know, because you know it's going to get really bad in there.
Right.
When Thomas Dowd is about, you get like it. How can I put it? It's almost like a moonshine smell, like, because you know that was the day. And when Tom Hutchins is there, it's a pipe tobacco called Old Holborn. Unless you're British, you don't know what it smells like, but it smells like a bit like parsley, sage, you know, it's kind of like a herby tobacco for a pipe. And
Okay.
people start to go, I can smell something. And then I'll say, yeah, time to go. I mean, you know, he's shown up so much in people's photographs, and you know, people have just seen him. He's
Wow.
just you know, I think, you know, there's been a book written by a local gentleman who now lives in Florida called The Wrongly Executed Air Force Man, I think it's called.
Okay.
And because the actual documents were sealed for 100 years, but he actually managed to get the documents unsealed, and it's well worth a read, because
That sounds
you know,
like me.
a lot of people, 50% of the community believe they had the right man, and 50% of the community believe they had the wrong man. But once you read that book, that you go into it having questions,
Okay.
and you finish the book with even more questions.
Wow, that sounds
Because all
fascinating.
most of the documentation is there, like, you know, the letter from Clemency from his parents in England, and he also was suffering from a brain injury too. But he was you know, an RAF man, just newly arrived in Canada. So, and there used to be a dance at Dead Man's Harbour Road in Blacks Harbour once a month, and that's where the murder took place.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Nancy Weems asked, what was the book called?
Oh, The Wrongly Executed Airman. If you give me a moment, I'll go and get it. I'll give 2 seconds.
Sure.
The Wrongly Executed Airman. So, because he was in the Royal Air Force, I guess, RAF. But this is fascinating. She's got great
Yeah.
stories.
I would love to take her tour.
I know. I'm seriously dusting off my passport, and we need to make a plan to go up there. So anybody wants to take a party bus to New Brunswick, let me know. Okay, cool.
Very nice.
The Wrongly Executed Airman by Alan Strachan. He was a local gentleman, and he wrote it, and he took on a lot of power to get everything. He got the forensic reports, stuff that was under British law sealed, and it was supposed to be sealed for 100 years, but he got it all, and it's, you know, everything's in there. Death certificate.
Oh, fantastic.
Everything, witness, you know, it's got most of the trial in there.
Okay.
That is great.
So,
Thank you for recommending that. We'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you can only get it on Amazon, and it's not cheap. It's like $40. It's probably less in the States, but it is. I've read it 3 times now. The first time I stayed up all night to finish it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So if somebody wanted to take your tour, which I know we already want to take a tour, and we're going to get us a group together and head up that way, when do we need to get up there?
Well, I should be starting them in June because the weather should be better. And I try to take them as much into October and November as I can, but once the snow comes, forget it. And I'll be posting up the times because it has to work around my job. But it's normally every Friday and Saturday nights. And I meet outside the town office because that's where the original jail was. So I talk about John Dunbar because he was, he escaped from that jail after chopping up his wife, and he was the town carpenter.
And so you put all of that information on your ghost walks.
Yeah, I don't disclose all the stories, otherwise,
of course.
Other companies will come and take them and everything. And I've done all my own research because I worked in the archives for a winter. So, and all the history is going back as 1600s in there.
Wow. Great.
So what used to be the upstairs part of the jail is now air-controlled vaults, and there's old ship records, there's newspapers, because before the paranormal team that came in September, when Thomas Dowd decided to get out of his chair and making him, hi, I'm here. It was days before we found the newspaper, and we actually found the Boston newspaper reporting on Eliza Ward getting, being hung while she was very heavily pregnant.
Well, that'll bring it out.
And all the real documents are upstairs, except for the papers to do with this hanging, because it was sealed under British law.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So who actually owns the courthouse and the jail now? Is it still owned by the county? It used to belong
to the provincial government, but the town of St. Andrews bought the jail and the courthouse in 2018, I believe.
Okay.
And they own it now. I think they might be wanting to sell it, but I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
Right. Hey, listen, we'll partner with you, Felicia.
I'd have no problem. But it's currently owned by the town of St. Andrews.
Okay.
So, in there, the courthouse is absolutely stunning. They've got the original weights and measures. So if you're short like a couple of ounces on your beer, you can get it measured there. There's only 2 sets in the world. One is with the manufacturers in London, England, and the other one is in St. Andrews.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, but the courthouse is absolutely stunning, and a lot of things have gone on, like lights have gone on when they shouldn't have gone on, and people have been, I had some 50 people on a ghost walk and nobody noticed it, and somebody was actually sat in a juror chair, and she sent me the video, and it's like 5 seconds, and you see this orb come down, hit the light, and these are the lights that were the original lights from 1840.
Cool.
It turns on and it turns off.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Nobody realized until it was too late, and we hear music being played in the basement, and there's nobody in the basement. The blinds go up and down. They had new blinds fitted 20 2018, and I went to see the blind fitters, and I've never seen these guys work so fast. They were up the ladders, put the new blinds in and down, and I walked in. They said, "Oh, we know who you are," and I said, "Oh, hear anything?" And they said, "No, no, no, we just wanted to get the job done as quick as possible." And I said, "Yeah, because you go by and the blinds will be up. Go back later, blinds will be down." Sometimes I actually get people call me here at home and they go, "What's going on in the courthouse?" I'm like, "Nothing as far as I know." And they're like, "The lights are going on and off. There's noises coming out of there." And I drive into town, nothing going on at the courthouse.
Oh, wow.
Town
Wow,
started
that's
holding their
awesome.
town meetings there. And I laughed and I said, "Well, you won't be alone, you know." They don't hold their meetings there anymore.
There you go. So if people want to investigate these locations, do they come through you?
Yes, they can private message me through the
Okay.
Facebook page Ghost Walks of St Andrews by the Sea, and then you know, they have to sign waivers. Yeah, so if they do want to come and investigate, then yes,
Oh, well,
I'm the only person. I'm the only actually person who will actually go in there after dark. I mean, I've caught some amazing pictures. Like one night, I had left my lantern on the table by the noose,
Mhm.
and I was locking up, and I was completely on my own. And I walk over, and I see through the grated doors, I've left my lantern, and I'm like, "What is that light?" So I take a photo with my phone because there's this light caught in between the slats of the gallows, and the slats are maybe ½ inch. So I get home and I start to enlarge the photo, and it's a picture of a man wearing a cap holding a noose. So I posted up on the Facebook page, and the gentleman, southernmost Ted, he does the ghost walks in Florida, and I belong to a professional ghost walk. No, not that I'm a professional, it's just a private page. So I posted it up and I went, "Oh, so you know you're not alone when you go back, and there's the hangman caught in between the noose, with the noose caught between the slats." And he went, "Aren't you worried about the man sat by your lantern?" I said, "What man?" And he said, "Can I take your photo? I'm going to enlighten it." And I said, "Sure." So I send it to him. He sends it back maybe 10 minutes later. Now, this is 2 o'clock in the morning here.
Mhm.
He sends it back to me. My blood ran cold because there, as clear as the day, is a man in an RAF uniform looking straight at me by
Oh
my
my
lantern.
gosh, that is
Now, there's a
fantastic.
connection between him and I.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm old, but I ain't that old. His trial started on the 29th of September, 1942. My birthday happens to be the 29th of September, 1942.
Oh,
Not 42. 29th of September, around about 50 something.
wow.
Okay.
The
That is
day he was executed was the 16th of December, 1942. The day my parents were married was the 16th of December, 1942. There are 365 days of the year, but two of those coincide. There are other similarities, other connections, but I don't want to reveal them online because they're family related.
right.
But
Sure.
I had family in the Royal Air Force. They served at the same bases as him. That's just literally
Wow.
that, you know, like I say, 365 days of the year, but 2 days, there's 2 days that mattered in that man's life
Mhm.
are the 2 days that matter in my life. My birthday and the date my parents got married.
Wow.
That's incredible.
It's like it was
I
meant
know.
to be.
And some of the paranormal teams didn't believe it. And I said, well, luckily, here's my birth certificate, 29th of September. And here's a copy of my parents' marriage certificate from London, 16th of December. And they're like, that is weird. And I'm like, yeah, that is just, sometimes things line up for a reason. But
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
yeah, but
Now, did you have something happen on the last investigation that was there, or was it a ghost tour that?
oh no, the last investigation was just incredible because we timelined it to exactly the same timeline as what happened to that man in 1942, because you couldn't even get into this town for 3 days. because they closed all the roads off for the hanging. And they built the gallows. They put a tarp on it, but because it was the war, they had to use the awning of a gift shop. So the team had come down twice before, and they had got such a strong connection with Thomas Dowd and Tom Hutchins. And one of the paranormal investigators is an ex-military gentleman. And well, they both are actually. And the minute the gentleman from Three Rivers, Jeff, walked in and he introduced himself, the spirit box came right back, because he said, "Oh, I'm ex-military." It came back with, "I know, brothers in arms."
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there was a connection. So I jokingly said, like, "Oh, you want to come back on the 16th of December for the anniversary?" Because, there were certain things that had happened during the day which were public knowledge because they weren't sealed. So after a couple of, I sent them all the information. They got an Airbnb. We all stayed together, and at the exact time, certain things would have happened to that man waiting for his death sentence. It just went ballistic, and I never want to hear another music box as long as I hear this. And I collect music boxes, but I like the ones that don't go off when you ask them things.
Right.
But they've had major success. I mean, all the paranormal teams do, because, it's just a very active place. But when they came in September, Lomar is his name, and his wife Chelsea, they came in on the tail end of a hurricane. And I said, well, this is good, because we're high tide, it's king tide, there's a hurricane that's churned up an awful lot of souls, and it was very active. In fact, at one stage they're just talking and something just gets from cell to cell, and he didn't know about my photos and my experience. And when he's talking about this end cell, and I went, yeah, and I showed him a photo, and he went, whoa. And I said, yeah. I said, that there, you can turn the light on and that orb will follow you, but once it knows that it's following you, it scurries off into that cell.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow. So how many paranormal teams have you all had there to investigate?
Oh my word, I think probably this is about the 15th team that have come in.
Oh,
okay. That is fantastic.
Because before, they weren't allowed to investigate because it was a provincially owned building, and there was a lot of red tape. But all red tape can be broken if you just have to persevere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first ones came, and that was my very first. I just, I tell them the history or whatever they want to know, and I just lock the doors and I say, when you want out, shout very loudly, because I can't hear you through the walls and the door. And that was a 15-hour lock-in in February.
Goodness.
Wow.
And I told them, you have to bring survival suits. If you're intending to sleep in those cells, you cannot sleep on the beds, because they are the original bed from the 1832. And secondly, there's no heating in there. So bring survival suits. So they did. I happen to have a very nice survival suit now, because I said, well, I can't leave you in here. I have to be here all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was one paranormal team, something went, we just all agreed that wasn't normal, and we needed to leave. And only once have we bailed out saying, no, we got to go. We got to go. Most of the time it's, a case of persevering.
Yeah.
And, if you have any fear, I always say to people, if you're going to come into the jail, you've got to have a lot of respect.
And absolutely.
If you don't, you might be leaving with more than you came in with.
Absolutely.
And it's like when they sign the waivers, because they're historical buildings. If they fall or break a leg or they break something historical, it's covered by insurance companies. And so I had a paranormal investigation like 2 Saturdays ago, and one of the guys at the end, he said, so what isn't covered by the waiver? I said, attachments. I said, nobody can insure against an attachment, But I always say to people, bring me your fear factor. And my best advice is, bring a spare pair of underwear. Now, the town is very dominated by deer. We have a lot of deer here. In fact, in the winter months, there are more deer than there are people. And so in fact, I was talking to someone from the town office today about the bylaws that the ghost walks have. And he went, "You have bylaws?" And I went, "Yeah, just funny ones." And he said, "What are those?" And I said, "Well, because there's so many deer in town, there are 3 rules. Do not bring a bushel of hay." So do not bring a bale of hay, do not carry a bushel of apples, and do not bathe in any kind of apple scented shampoos, body sprays, conditioners for 3 days before you make it. One night we counted 48 deer on one ghost walk.
Oh my God, that is funny.
Wow.
And we have
this is great.
3 spirit deer, which are pure white deer.
Oh, that's
Oh.
cool.
And
That is
a
very
lot
cool.
of times they're just outside the courthouse, just, there. And in fact, I'll send you the picture. One morning I'm going, and this is when I worked in the winter there, and I'm sat in my car and I'm just like listening to the radio and, finishing my coffee. And I take a picture of the deer and I'm like, because they're beautiful. And this is outside in the court, outside the jail, right?
Mhm.
And I get in and I get home that night and I'm like admiring my picture and I'm like, what the hell is that? There's a woman hanging in the trees.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
That is fantastic. I want to see this.
You can
picture.
clearly make
Yeah.
her out. You can see her hood and her riding suit, and then you can see her holding the reins. And I was
Wow.
like, and I actually went back to see if it had been a reflection of something.
Mhm.
But there's nothing there. There's no house there that would have made that reflection. It wasn't Halloween, and you can clearly see it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of unnerving, because people always pick up on things outside of the court and the
Mhm.
jail.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That is awesome. Well, I got to tell you, we haven't had a lot of guests on this show, but you have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
everybody-
thank you very much. I was very nervous.
Everybody in the comments are saying how great you are and how great your stories are. And so I, for one, want to make a plan to come up and go on your ghost walk. And
Oh, well, I
investigate your jail.
appreciate that. I very much look forward to that. And you just contact me, and January isn't a very good time because I'm not on the mainland normally. Well, I am, but January is not a good time. But yeah, so, and there are other haunted places, like the most famous, there's the Algonquin Hotel here, but I don't do anything to do with the hotel because they do their own thing.
Understood.
But I'll see if I can remember. I used to start from the hotel, but they got a bit miffed. Because one night I show up, and I'm like expecting 20, 30 people. And I go in and I'm like, oh, is there anyone for the ghost walk tonight? And they went, yeah, all those people out there. I went, well, and she goes, there's 102 people out there. And I went, oh, I said, right, okay, well, there's going to be some more rules put into force. So I told everyone, turn off your phones. You can keep your cameras on. I don't want to hear about your golf game. Nobody else wants to hear about your golf game. We are going to walk the streets in an orderly fashion because we're going to jail, people, and you can get in, but you're not going to be able to get out easy. And it was like crowd control. Everyone behaved themselves. But I used to start off from the hotel and I write my own poetry.
Okay.
And I haven't read, this is one thing I made up for, at the start of the, and if people ask me about the hotel ghosts, I will tell them. So the most famous is, I am the bride from room 473. And as you might clearly see, I'm here tonight with all of you. My groom never sailed into the bay, which made for me a truly tragic wedding day. At the altar, I did await, and with the tides, I did abide. But sadly, I left the church gate to be always known as the jilted bride who cried and then died. And now I roam from here to there, searching for my lost love in despair. My heart is forever broken because my wedding vows still remain unspoken. And from my window, I will sit and wait for a time in history that has no date. My tears I still shed. I'm not meant to bring fear, as my permanent presence is always meant most sincere. So should you see me in the town upon a moonlit night, don't blame it on your failing eyesight. It is I wandering alone, wandering eternity alone, all skeletal and bones. Because sometimes I will dress as an undertaker, sometimes I dress as a bride. You never know. If as the summer gets hotter, then it's too hot to be carting around. But I sometimes wear, like, I tailored a young lad's wedding suit into an 18th century
Well, first of all,
undertaker's outfit.
Nice. Well, that poem was
I open up
fantastic.
the lining, and it's all skeleton and poison bottles and, you know, arsenic recipes, and people go, wow. And I'm like, yeah, I took old style sewing at school in England, so I do all my sewing by hand. So I tailored it to be an undertaker's outfit.
Love it.
Oh,
Absolutely love it.
that.
Absolutely love it. Well, you are so fantastic. And like I said,
Well,
I think
I gotta say, I love your accent.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you can watch any of the investigations, especially the last one, because Albert started to come through, and it was just a weird day in total. Like, there was just weird things happening. Like, it was an extra high tide, and we met a friend of mine, and he's like an Oak Island guy. He used to be on Oak Island. And he was even saying the tide is really high, and I'd be like, yeah, it's not a king tide, it's not a full moon, it's just a high tide. And then when they got into, and they were allowed to go up into the prisoners' quarters where the prison guards used to live, they lived in the attic.
Okay.
And all of a sudden an Albert kept coming through. So they, you know, I'm downstairs and they come down and, you know, talking about Albert and everything. And lo and behold, the first folder I pick up, bearing in mind there were hundreds of folders there, was a gentleman by the name of Albert, who was accused in 1928, I think it was, of murdering his infant daughter. And I said, today has just been weird, like really, really weird. Like, and I said, I already have a headache and I don't normally get stressed, but I could feel the pressure building because, you know, you just feel it. And we were doing at the exact time. I mean, he was supposed to be hung at first light. They hung him at 1:50 in the morning.
Goodness.
Wow.
That is, I'm telling you, you definitely have a connection with your jail. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I love it. I'd live there in a heartbeat.
Well, if they ever put it up for sale, we'll go and have these with you because that place sounds fantastic.
I would actually sell my house to go and live there. I'd live upstairs. I'd live in the attic actually, where the guards used to
The
thing.
jailers.
I mean, it's
Yes.
super creepy. I think there's 2 portals there, but hey, you know,
Hey,
it's 2024. What possibly could happen?
Right. So if people want to watch any of those videos that came out of there, is it best to watch on the Ghost Walk site? Or
Yes, it's all the ones are up there, and you just click on the link and it will go straight to the YouTube channels that are, you know, are there, and all the photographs are there, and you can go onto TripAdvisor, look under Charlotte County Archives, because it is a jail, and yes, they do like to remove people's jewelry. And one woman, she had a necklace taken off in the courthouse, and it wasn't a necklace that, you know, was long enough when she bent down it would fall over her head. It was a catch, and she looked down in the judge's chamber and she goes, that's my necklace, but the catch is on. And I went, we've just been in a jail.
That's so cool.
Like they like shiny things. They like magpies. Collect shiny things, people. So the press picked it up. So they sent a reporter down, and she was with her friend. And I looked at her. She had a crucifix, and I went, oh, you know, they're going to really like that. Not 10 minutes into the jail, I hear this woman scream. She goes, oh, my crucifix has just been taken off and the catch is down. The catch is on. And I said, well, it's a jail. They used to steal stuff. But people will find that their earrings have come out, but the backs are on.
That is wild. I totally wanna
Rings
get
have
to
come
this
off
jail.
because I tell people don't wear too much bling because they do like shiny things. But
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
one gentleman, he had those real big, those real big earrings that,
Oh yeah, yeah, the
and
gauges.
I said to him, like, you're an earring missing. He went, that's impossible. Those earrings don't come out. But we found it in the
Oh my god.
quarantine cell.
Wow.
And he was, and the best thing is the graffiti is still on the wall. And I actually had one gentleman, he came in on Ghost Walk 2017, and he said to me, don't say anything, but I've done 32 days in there. I said, I won't say a word. So he actually pointed out where he'd written his name and
Oh,
how
wow.
many days he'd done in there.
That's cool.
And it doesn't matter how many times they whitewash those walls, they come back.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had several people that own jails or have jails that say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But I
very
had
cool.
couple of years ago, there was a jailers reunion. I think it was their 40th reunion, and I was working at the hotel at the time, a different hotel, and I was working on the reception. And they checked in, and they were asking about the ghost walks, and it wasn't a ghost walk night, and I was working till 12 o'clock, and so the owner of the hotel said, "Oh, see the lady doing the reception? That's her." And I went, "Oh Lord." So they convinced me to meet them outside the jail at 1 o'clock in the morning. And they told me stories that
Oh,
would
I'm
make your
sure.
hair curl. And they were second and third generation grandchildren of original jailers there. And they would tell me stories, and they would say once it got dark there, they would literally turn the lights on in the attic, and they wouldn't, they dreaded going down there because bells would always toll in when there was a hanging, and there's a bell above the door.
Oh.
And even the
Mm.
jailer, he had a personal diary, and
Mhm.
he even says, and on one of the videos I even talk about it, that for no apparent reason, the night that they hung Tom Hutchins, the bell above the door rang and nobody was at the door.
Wow,
Wow.
that's fantastic. That is a
And
great
then when they
story.
hung Thomas Dowd, the same thing happened.
Mhm.
And that was in 1879.
Wow.
Wow.
That
That's
And
is-
I've heard that
that
bell
is
ring, and
really cool.
I've just got out there. I've just gone for a coffee and composed myself. And I go back in. I'm like, okay. I mean, like,
Got my
I
coffee.
did bring an attachment home one night, and he smashed my back door, side door, and I wasn't very impressed. And I put it up on my own personal page, and they went, "Do you know there's a man looking in at your door?" I said, "Yes, I know. I do know. And yes, I am holding my door together with band-aids, plasters, because I've got no duct tape. And it was dark, and there was no reason. There was a knock at my back door, and I said, "Go away. You're not welcome in my house." There was a knock at my front windows here. I said, "No, go away." And then all of a sudden, a big knock at the side door of my house, and boom, plate glass door smashed.
Oh
And
my
someone said to me on
gosh.
Facebook, "Oh, maybe the man mowing the lawn." I said, "It's 10 o'clock at night. Nobody mows the lawn at 10 o'clock at night. Maybe a bird had flown into it." I said, "No, I'll get all the glass in between the two doors, because
Wow.
we have two doors on the houses here for the storms."
Yeah, yeah.
And so I took a picture because I just stuck a note up, "Do not open this door because the rest will fall in." And
Yeah.
someone said, "There's a man looking in." I went,
Mm-mm.
"Yes, I know. I'm taking him back to the jail right now." I said, "I've had enough. He's knocked on 3 of my doors, carved one of my doors in. It's time. I'm
Yeah.
going back to the jail, and he's got to go with me." So
Yes.
after I finish a ghost walk, I come home. I sage myself. I almost marinate myself in the bath with it.
Oh.
And I walk around my house outside in bare feet.
Okay, yeah.
And I,
Ground yourself.
I
Yep.
sage myself. I come back in. I've got tourmaline over my doors, because when you're in there as much as I am, you're
Mhm.
going to get something attaching you to something.
Mhm. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
Well,
I'd love you guys to come up. It would
oh,
be
we
great.
would love to.
There's
Like I said,
so many other places here that are haunted. Like there's a whole island.
Yep. Well, listen, we're making plans. Like I said, I think we've got a whole group of people in the chat room that are going to come with us. So be prepared for
Awesome,
an
awesome.
invasion up
All
there in New
right.
Brunswick.
Well, I think we've gone over the hour, haven't we?
That's okay. Listen,
That's
everybody's
fine.
been loving it. So we just
Okay,
we just
cool.
appreciate your
But yeah,
time
there's a
with
lot
us.
of haunted place. I mean, it's an old loyalist town. I mean, pirates were hung in the town square, brides were jilted at the altar, and just the graveyards. I mean, I always say, well, the ghost walks, it starts at the town office, it goes uptown, which is like, 4 maybe an 8-minute walk uphill, and I go, we're going to the dead center of town, people, the graveyard. And that's the loyalist graveyard. And there's lots of people I talk about in there. And I always say, I can't guarantee that they have ghosts, but they have some very interesting pasts.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there
Yep,
is
absolutely.
one poor woman, one name, Sophia Wallace Donaldson Coffin,
Huh.
who died on
Awesome.
Valentine's Day.
Oh,
Oh my
that's
goodness.
sad.
I know, it's so sad. And then
Good.
Charles Joseph Briscoe, our man of mystery that was exhumed. He wanted to be exhumed 50 years after he died, and he died in 1840. So they exhumed him in 1890. But all the paperwork he'd taken to his grave, they had to put the lid on the coffin, and it was all unlegible.
Oh.
But
Awful.
the jewelry he was wearing tells a different story, which I get into on the ghost walk. And then
Very
it's over
cool.
to the jail and the courthouse. And then if people ask me other pirate stories, because there's lots of pirates here, there were anyway. It's just a very haunted town, during lockdown, because I a single household. It was great because I would go for drives around the town at 3 o'clock in the morning, and knowing where these other people are buried, and it was nice because there was nobody else out, not a soul. There wasn't a plane in the sky, and it'd be like you'd hear a thing and you'd be like, okay, that's good.
Well, listen,
I wasn't breaking any rules or anything. I was allowed to go out as a single,
there you
right.
go. Absolutely.
and I didn't leave my car, but I even continued the ghost walks through COVID by, I used to say to people, I can only take 8 of you. You have to be distanced. Don't make me lasso you to each other with a 6-foot ropes, because trust me, people, I will.
There you go. I firmly believe you would have too. So.
Oh, I was hoping so. I already bought the rope. And put hunter's tape that you put around the trees when you want your trees down. And I put them into 6.5-foot lengths. And I was like, okay, it'd be like taking a bunch of children out on like those reins for adults. But no. And once we got into the jail, I'd say, okay, you go there. That's your 6 foot. And it worked because there was nothing else people could do. Like, you just had to remain kind of normal through it. But I believe when we were all under lockdown, they were definitely coming out to play.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like the wildlife. Like, I live out in on the side of the bay here, and I was seeing all kinds of animals, and I was like, oh no, that's because the humans aren't out. That's not good.
Well, like I said, I think just coming up to meet you would be a treat in and of itself. So
well, we'll have to arrange that we can if you do come up, we'll have to incorporate the Dorchester jail, because that's owned by my friend Bill Steele, and that's very haunted too. You might want to get hold of him. He's in Dorchester, and that's where Eliza Ward went. And what Bill didn't realize when he bought the jail and turned it into a bed and breakfast, and the beds are so comfortable. I like the one where it says "Rest in peace" and there's a crucifix above my head. And these are the original, beds, and they're concrete slabs slapped into the wall. He didn't realize that if you were sent to jail here for say 7 years, because of the barbaric conditions of that jail here, you could only actually do physically 2 years. So they would be carted off down to Dorchester. So when Bill bought the jail, I drove to Dorchester and introduced myself and told him a bit about the history. As we were talking about Eliza Ward, which he had no idea about, this rush of coldness came right through, and I went, oh, she's here with us.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But a lot of haunted places here. Like the whole place is haunted,
Okay.
especially
Wow.
in St. John.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely have to get his contact info because we'd love to have him on the show to.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's a card. He's him and Natasha, who own the jail. And see where the jail is. He had the Bannister boys, which were two brothers, and they were hung on the same noose.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
That's going to be a fun story to hear about.
Yeah, I'll send you his details. So
please,
yeah,
please.
Yep. Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
Yeah.
well, again, thank you so much for your time and all of the information. And like I said, we're going to be getting in touch with you because, and dusting off our passports and getting up there to visit you.
awesome. Just let
Yeah.
me know ahead of time because I got family coming over sometime.
We will let you know. We'll plan well in
yeah,
advance.
yeah.
When-
So I'll try and find your haunted Airbnb too.
Perfect.
that'd
All
be
right, you're
perfect.
singing our song now.
just to make it really worthwhile. Because
Perfect.
this is an old town. Like people always
yep.
say, well, is my house haunted? And I'm like, well, I don't go into people's haunted homes.
Right,
But
right.
if you bought a home and it's like built in 1795, chances are
Chances are
the
you got
owners are still
something.
there.
Yep, yep.
I would say so.
Well, thank
So-
you again. We certainly
That's no
appreciate you.
problem. I've really enjoyed meeting you and thank
This
you
is
for your time.
Absolutely. We
Yes,
enjoyed
thank
meeting you as
you.
well. And we'll be in touch, okay?
Okay.
You have a
Take
great
care.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio. Bye.
Okay, she's a hoot.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Absolutely love that show. And thank you all for watching and for commenting. And like I said, we will have to get some type of a party bus because I have a feeling that we'll be spending a lot of time going through that town with Felicity there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Just a wealth of knowledge and the way she tells her stories.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that was just
Riveting. Absolutely
Yeah.
riveting. Just hearing, the different hangings and such and just the history. So I greatly enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And speaking of stories, if you're looking to hear some interesting stories about our jail or about historic rugby, again, we do have tours all weekend long, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. The Saturday night here at the jail is nearly sold out, but we've got them the rest of the weekend. You can book those on the website there at historyhighwayshaunts.com. And we hope to see you out here for one of those tours.
Yeah, absolutely. And dust off those passports because we're going to head up to New Brunswick soon. We have to.
Yes, go check out her page. We flashed that up on the screen several times. The Ghost Walks of New Brunswick there, and also we've got all the notes there in the show notes. So definitely go and show some support there and check them out.
But we're going to go ahead and close it. So thank you all very much. We really appreciate it. And y'all have a very blessed evening.
Yep, we'll see you at 7 p.m. next week.
Mm-hmm.